welcome to the second episode of Talent Hub TV. We're here with Felix Nilam from Capgemini, recently joined Capgemini in a senior manager role, and we're here to talk about his career before Salesforce, the journey into the Salesforce market, and I guess how he's found it over the last, how long now?
I guess I started probably about 1.5 years ago.
So the last 18 or so months, how Felix has found coming from another CRM into Salesforce, and some advice to anyone else that's kind of looking to make the same move. So I guess to start off, it would be good to understand a bit more about your life before Salesforce, what you were doing, how long you were doing it for, and a bit about that journey up until this point, or up until 18 months ago.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I started my career being a web developer.
Okay.
So at that point of time, just straight off uni, I really didn't think a lot about what I wanted to do, except that I want to be financially independent.
Of course.
So I just sort of like took whatever job comes in.
Yeah.
So it happens to be basically a web developer.
Sure.
I did that for about 9 months.
Yeah.
And then after that point, I sort of like, okay, now I need to really think about what I want to do. So I ended up looking for other opportunities. So at that point, I was still in a developer sort of like role, but I managed to find this company called Insightful Solutions.
Sure.
Who are actually one of the largest partner of Sugar CRM.
Okay.
So that's how I get into the CRM industry, I suppose.
Sure.
So I did that, and I guess overall I am with them kind of like a few years, but I'll tell you the story because it's kind of like moving from one to another. But in essence, while I was there, I managed to be able to get into multiple roles as well. So sure. I started off as just a CRM developer.
Yeah.
Then I get into pre-sales engineer, even project manager, the technical lead, as well as becoming sort of like a CRM trainer.
Yeah.
So sort of like the whole end-to-end project lifecycle.
And is that because of the size of the business that you got thrown into all of those different roles?
I guess you can say that. I guess Insightful Solutions was sort of a startup, so okay. I was one of their first successful employees. Sure. I guess. And yes, so I got it. I need to be able to become very flexible and being able to help out in anything that's needed, really.
Yeah, of course.
But that's how I sort of like learned all these different roles quite quickly as well, because I've been put into that position and you just have to do it.
Sure.
Yeah. So I did that, and then back in 2008, the company was actually acquired by another telecom company called Finality. Mm-hmm. Their headquarters is actually in California, United States.
Sure.
So I actually got the chance to travel and stay in California to work for Finality in their headquarters.
Nice.
I was brought there as one of the lead developers. And at that time, I guess it was the very first time I really got introduced to Salesforce.
Sure.
So I was implementing the CTI integration between Salesforce and their PBX system.
Okay.
So that project, I think, went on for about a year, from inception until it's actually being offered to the public.
Sure.
But when I was in California, so I spent the first 3 months just wrapping up that project. So after that point on, so even though I was still managing their own internal Sugar CRM instance, so changes here and there, maintenance, I was sort of brought into the core engineering team, so more of the product team.
Sure.
To work on the core product, the PBX system, as well as the sort of like the web control panel.
Okay.
So from there on, I guess that's where I sort of deviate a little bit from my sort of like CRM skills and whatnot. I managed to, I guess, being promoted to be a software engineering manager. So managing not a lot of people then, it was probably about 5, but it's between the Philippines and Australia.
Sure.
And I was lucky in the sense that while I was working for Finality, I managed to had the opportunity to work from 4 different countries.
Okay.
So I worked from Australia, from the United States, from the Philippines, as well as from Indonesia.
Yeah, nice.
So it was quite a fun ride there, being able to do that. So when I moved back from California back to Sydney, So I only spent about 2 years over there. That's when I learned that the original company, Salesforce Solutions, actually was like split up. So it became a new company called Insightful CRM.
Sure.
And so it was with the same people as well. So I sort of know the team already.
They've grown by this point.
At that point, I don't think they have grown so much. At that point, it's still like pretty small team.
Sure.
But I knew they're probably going separate ways with Finality in that sense, and that got me thinking. And I sort of after tasting the consulting business while I was in the CRM industry, as well as being in a product development.
Yeah.
So in Finality, just being core to the product team. I guess I found my passion in the consulting service, or more so in the CRM industry. So that's I actually then I get in touch with my old boss from Insightful Solutions, Insightful CRM then, and then I managed to basically move back to Insightful CRM and basically doing the CRM implementation again.
Sure.
Which I find, I guess, more interesting than the product development stuff.
Okay. So then how did you go from being back with Insightful CRM to now finding your way into the Salesforce market?
Yes, that's a very interesting event. So Insightful CRM, after I joined them in 2013, after about one year and a half, they actually got acquired by another company.
Sure.
It's a digital agency called Squeeze. They predominantly provide services in their CMS product.
Sure.
For the first year, there wasn't really a lot of change. We were still like sort of operating as our own sort of like division, as a customer insights division, still delivering CRM implementation. So not a lot of change there, except that we've got a lot more BDMs that's actually selling the product for us to deliver.
Sure.
Because Squeeze was, I guess they are pretty global. So at that time, they operate in all the states in Australia, as well as New Zealand, in London in the UK, and I believe they had office in New York in United States. So as you can see, there was basically just lots of people trying to sell, and we just have to deliver all that.
Okay.
So I guess the turning point really happened the second year. That's when I guess there were quite a bit of change in management and structure of the way we do things.
Sure.
And I guess it didn't really work out well, unfortunately. So that sort of prompted me to actually seriously look into the job market again. And so I've been in the Sugar CRM for the past 10 years then, and I know that's my expertise. So that's where I looked. And I guess I have to mention that at that point, I managed to get all the 4 certification that Sugar CRM had available at that time.
Okay.
So I thought, like, I already invest in that, so I just really want to get back to the Sugar CRM business.
Sure.
But as I was looking for jobs there, I found there was almost nothing out there. So and that's when I was like really thinking, and it's like a light bulb moment when every time I was in pre-sales engagement, Salesforce is always in the table, and so that's probably the time when I really need to research into it and just find out what Salesforce has to offer, why they are actually the #1 CRM platform.
Sure.
So at that point, then I actually started looking for roles in Salesforce, and there was definitely a lot more opportunities out there.
I bet you've never regretted that search, have you?
Not at all.
Okay,
So that's really the turning point, and I guess after that point, I did try to apply to Salesforce directly firsthand. So it was, I believe it was a pre-sales engineer role.
Sure.
So I just went in because I did have some pre-sales experience, but I guess I kind of knew this as well because I didn't really have a lot of experience in the platform. So I didn't really get that interview.
Sure.
But even though I didn't get that, I actually did get introduced to Trailhead.
Okay.
I looked at it, and that was definitely a great learning tool.
Sure.
So I knew if I want to be in the Salesforce industry or market, then I really need to get up to speed over all the knowledge around just the platform.
Sure.
So Trailhead definitely helps a lot. So
Yeah.
I madly tried to get all those badges in the Trailhead.
Sure.
While I was looking for new roles as well. And I guess that's how I found Arxis.
Yeah.
So Arxis was one of the company that's pretty unique in the sense that they predominantly are Salesforce partner and they only implement Salesforce solutions.
Sure.
But when they were looking for people back then, they didn't really require actual Salesforce experience.
Okay.
So that's what get me to try to apply.
Sure.
And I'm very lucky that they believed in me because
Yeah.
at that point I've only got my experience behind me. I didn't really have any certifications or anything like that.
Sure.
I guess I can only demonstrate that I knew a little bit about Salesforce because I was already learning with Trailheads.
Sure.
And so yeah, I was really lucky that they really believed in me and they let me into their role. And in fact, that became the door for me to the Salesforce world.
Okay. So you're now 18 months in. What would you now class yourself as a Salesforce professional? So what would you say you're a senior manager at Capgemini, but what does that mean from a technical perspective?
Good questions. I think I would probably say I'm still a Salesforce developer, as well as I guess a solution architect. So having that technical background, I still love being just coding. Getting down dirty with good coding.
Sure.
But at the same time, I also love just talking to clients, figuring out what their business entails, what sort of problems they're trying to resolve, and just leveraging the Salesforce platform to be able to come up with the best solution.
Okay.
For that. So
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And so I don't know a huge amount about Sugar CRM. I've specialised in the Salesforce space for a good while now and am very much embedded in this space. And obviously the Salesforce market has almost a cult-like following. You go to Dreamforce, there's hundreds of thousands of people there. We have regular meetups here in Sydney and people just want to be talking Salesforce, seeing Salesforce, living and breathing Salesforce. Was that similar in, I guess you can only talk for one CRM, but Sugar CRM, did you kind of have the same cult-like following in that space?
Right. So there is definitely a community in Sugar CRM as well. I don't think it's as huge as it is in Salesforce.
Yeah.
They do have annual conferences. I think they run one for the users called SugarCon.
Okay.
And there's another one for the developers called Uncon.
Okay.
But aside from those two events, I'm not aware of any user groups they might be running, or
Sure.
if they run it might not be as huge as the Salesforce user groups that we have in different locations, I guess.
Sure. So then from you would come across Salesforce when you were in pre-sales activities, you were competing with Salesforce. Did you have an opinion of Salesforce at that time? And why did it take you so long to say, right, this is now the platform for me?
Very good question, man. I think I was a long advocate of Sugar CRM. I guess I got that sense of loyalty, if you will. And every time I was in pre-sales engagement, it's just that Salesforce is there. Yes, but we are a competitor. So I've just got these rate cards to go against them. This is like different shares between Sugar and Salesforce. So I didn't really think much about actually trying to go into the platform then.
Sure.
Because I knew. Sugar CRM was the product for me then. Yeah. And I was the expert on it. So yeah, I guess so. And one of the thing that came up more frequently than not when I was in pre-sales engagement is that Salesforce tends to, at that point of time, they try to basically just sell their products without trying to sort of like tailor the solutions with whatever the client's needs were.
Okay.
And I think that's where we sort of we were better when we tried to sell Sugar CRM.
Yeah.
And I think most deals that we've won is primarily because not so much about the technology, i.e. Sugar CRM, it was the fact that we were consulting in essence. So we're trying to come up with the solutions that will meet the client's problems.
Sure.
Just having Sugar CRM as basically the technology of choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that you're on the other side, do you see that differently in the way that you once felt how Salesforce was potentially sold? Do you see that now from a different angle?
Yes, certainly so. I think there is a reason why Salesforce is the #1 CRM platform, and that's really the key was their platform. So Salesforce is a platform; it's not just a CRM.
Sure.
I think it's just that there are lots of things that you can do with the platform itself, because there are a lot of enterprises that already adopt that solution. So I guess there's a lot more success stories around Salesforce for enterprises.
Sure.
And I think that's probably the reason why they don't really put a lot of huge news when they win this enterprise deal, because most enterprises will be with them anyway.
Sure.
Whereas with Sugar, we always try to highlight the fact that we just won this enterprise because
Of course.
Yeah.
So how do projects differ from they're both, well, as you say, Salesforce is a platform. If you're delivering a Salesforce project and a Sugar CRM project, as a consultant, a developer, what's the biggest differences you found between the two?
I can probably only tell about my 1.5 year experience in Salesforce, which is not a lot yet. But in terms of the complexity of the project, I would say it's very similar.
Okay.
So the whatever business problems or business needs that we want to solve, I always try to think of it. What if I use Sugar? What if I use Salesforce? I think in the end the solutions would be very similar. It's just that the technical implementation would be different because you're using Salesforce as opposed to Sugar.
Sure.
So in terms of the project complexity is very similar. But what I have found is difference. I think it's just the size of the project, really. So in Sugar CRM, normally the project is primarily for small to medium enterprise, whereas in Salesforce I found that there's a lot larger enterprise would actually adopt that solution.
Sure.
And given that it's a platform, so they don't only focus on just one part of the system, let's say the CRM, but they also think about, okay, how else we can actually enrich this whole experience by leveraging the platform.
Sure.
Yes, we've also got that in Sugar CRM, but I think because Salesforce is a platform, again with all the app exchange stuff, app exchange apps, I think we were able to pretty much implement or enrich this whole experience a little bit faster compared to Sugar CRM.
Sure. Okay. And so you performed various different roles, as you said, in Sugar CRM. So what skills have you found to be most transferable? And from, I guess, specifically in the development space, so coding now, Apex, Visualforce,
right,
in comparison to how you would code and the languages you were coding, any similarities, things you've had to learn, things that you could bring across with you?
It's definitely transferable in a sense that so in Sugar CRM it's based on PHP and MySQL. It is object-oriented in PHP, the way they actually implement it.
Sure.
So in that sense, it's the I guess the best practice and the design patterns is very similar. And what I found when I try to learn Apex, Lightning, all that stuff, it's just syntax, because the whole best practice on how you will tackle a certain implementation would be very similar.
Okay.
It's just that you have to pick up this new language. So
sure,
it's pretty much just new syntax to me.
Okay.
So it wasn't really something. I wouldn't say I would have to learn it from scratch. Really.
Sure.
Yeah.
So and you mentioned Arxis were great for you because they gave you a chance, but we don't always see companies giving people that chance. So for someone else that's looking to make that transition from any CRM or even a non-CRM programming background, what advice would you have around transferring those skills into the Salesforce market?
I would definitely recommend Trailhead. Trailhead is a very good start because then you can learn all that stuff. It's free. You can sign up with a developer org and you can start playing around with it. Obviously, you need to have that drive to learn more and more,
sure,
because the learning never stops, man. Because once you are in this, it just never stops because there's constantly different new things all the time. But another, I guess, piece of advice is if you really want to jump into Salesforce from, let's say, a different CRM product, I think if you go with a startup, I think that's where you would find that you will be able to learn all this stuff quickly.
Okay.
And especially, I was lucky that I was with Arxis because Arxis actually supports me in all this. So they supported me with all the learnings. So they have their own internal sort of like knowledge management or something like that.
Sure.
They support me getting with all those certifications as well.
Okay.
So I can leverage their expertise within the company just to get, you know, tips here and there, and where to get more information. And plus you'll also be exposed to the actual projects where you want to actually delve into and getting more hands-on experience on whatever, you know, certification you're trying to prepare for.
Sure. So, and 18 months in, what's your favourite thing about the Salesforce platform that you didn't have in the Sugar CRM space?
One thing is the fact that lots of those, I guess, implementation is declarative, so just points and clicks.
So that wasn't...
So with Sugar CRM, yes, there is points and clicks, but I found that in most enterprise projects, we would always have to like develop something custom.
Sure.
And most of the time it's always like something custom. You build that package. Yes, you can reuse that, but it's always something custom that you need to build.
Sure.
Whereas in Salesforce, there's a lot more sort of like switches you can turn on, and like just point and click, and you'll be able to like do that. So without needing to, you know, touch code at all.
Sure.
So even though I would say in the project that I've been, we also need to develop, and, you know, put some code level customizations, but still that's still within the realm of what Salesforce actually provides. So
sure.
In one hand, it's not as flexible, yes, but it's actually more stable in the sense that, you know, you are in that sort of like container, so that whatever you do, you will be sure that it won't actually break the entire, you know, CRM itself. Whereas in Sugar CRM, you have lots of flexibility. You can even touch the source code if you want to.
Okay.
Not recommended.
Yeah.
But then the risk, there's also a risk that comes with it, because then if you touch a lot more than what you're not supposed to, one is it probably will work now, but when there's an upgrade coming in, and it might not work anymore, you might have to re-implement all that stuff.
Sure. So, so 4 certifications in Sugar CRM, and how many now in Salesforce?
There's 25 now.
And how many have you got?
I've got 15 at the moment.
15.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so has that been your plan as soon as you kind of got the opportunity to get those certifications, was to hit those hard and get through as many as possible?
I guess so. Although I didn't really think about certification that much before. When I went to Access, that's when one, I know certifications will be needed if you want to actually move to Salesforce. That's, you know, highly regarded.
Sure.
And 2, when I was at Access basically told me that, you know, before we put you in a project, you have to get certified. You have to at least get 3 certifications.
Yeah.
So I managed to get those 3 technically before day 1.
Sure.
So,
okay.
So that I can get into a project right away.
Yeah.
But I guess that's where I gained my momentum. So as soon as I got that 3, it's like I just want to, you know, keep learning. And when you keep learning, you just want to have that, you know, level of satisfaction or verification at the end that you've actually learned, and you can be sure that you've learned the right thing as well.
Sure.
So that's where I get my certifications, and I sort of know if I want to be, you know, highly regarded in the Salesforce industry, as I were in Sugar CRM, that I really need to get all these certifications under my belt.
Okay. So 15 certifications now. What's next for Felix?
I've actually planning to get the next certification, which is Platform Developer 2.
Okay.
Hopefully in the coming weeks.
Sure.
And obviously I'm still trying to get to that CTA peak, this Certified Technical Architect.
Sure.
So I'm constantly preparing for it.
Okay.
So with Capgemini, I'm actually hoping that I would gain more experience, and I also gain, I guess, mentors that would be able to coach me to get to the CTA level.
Sure.
And I guess just applying all that knowledge to my next clients.
So what's the plan with the CTA? Kind of how I know you have more certifications and stuff in between, but what's a realistic goal and time frame for when you're going to be sitting and challenging the review board?
That's a very interesting question, Ben. I would have to say I did try to push myself and said I would like to attempt it this year.
Okay.
But I know it's going to be a big challenge, because part of CTA is not just that certificate, it's not just that technical knowledge.
Sure.
Obviously you need to apply the other soft skills as well, like presentations, pretty much all the consulting skills, selling the idea, being able to think on the go, like without really needing a lot of time.
Sure.
So there's a lot of all those other skills that I haven't really tried to sharpen myself.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that combined with my experience with the project itself, I'm hoping I'll try to find some time with my mentors to actually hone that skill. And like I said, I'm really pushing this really hard, and I would love to try to attempt it this year.
Sure.
But if I don't have that chance, if I feel that I'm not prepared enough, I probably won't do it.
Yeah.
But it will probably be within 1 or 2 years, I will try to attempt it.
Okay. And final question, for companies that are hesitant to give people from a non-Salesforce background, CRM development, what would you say to them, and why should more companies who are struggling to find Salesforce resource consider candidates like yourself 18 months ago and give you that shot?
I think it's really coming down to, I guess, experience and the passions. So I think if you find that a lot of people are passionate about what they do, so I'm actually quite passionate in CRM, and I think the key is as well is if they do have that technical background, you would find that people would be able to learn this Salesforce or new technology really fast.
Sure.
And just say give them a chance. Just take them for an interview. See what they like, and you can probably just give them an actual task as well, assignments. I didn't mention it while I was applying for Access. I actually get assigned sort of like a small assignment that I have to actually deliver in Salesforce. I need to configure things in Salesforce and try to pitch the ideas as far as the solution is concerned. I actually find that very enjoyable.
Okay.
At one point, I sort of thought to myself, like, even if I didn't get it, I would still go through it anyway, because I enjoyed just trying to apply all this knowledge that I had and actually working on an assignment. So yeah.
So was that a challenge, seeing as you hadn't worked with Salesforce before?
Definitely, yes.
Okay. but you were able to get through it. How did you? Was that again going back through Trailhead and getting your head around the different?
Yes, Trailhead's definitely helped. Yes, and just trying it out there. Yeah.
Sure.
And at that time it was just quite timely that Lightning experience just came out. I think it was just about 2 years young. So I get really excited with that, because the first time I actually had a look at Salesforce, they still have the classic UI. And I thought, compared to Sugar CRM then, it was really outdated. It was like, it's just page refresh here and there. So when I got to work with Lightning, I get really excited, because
Okay, great. So I'm sure the number 16 isn't far off with the certifications, and I think everyone should keep their eyes peeled for the development of yourself over the next few years. And I'm sure CTA won't be too far away. So good luck, and thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thanks, man. Thank you.